Gen Z is embracing the power of doing nothing and not functioning as an adult in society. Because in increasing numbers, it seems that Gen Z is opting out of having jobs, going to school, or doing basically anything with their lives and doing anything to contribute to society at all.
This is the natural conclusion to doomerism.
Now, here's the shocking stat that just came out. As of 2023, about 1/5 of people between the ages of 15 and 24 are currently classified as NEETS. And what that means is it's an acronym, not in employment, education, or training. They say it's not exactly clear what is causing sizable Gen Z cohorts to ditch the workforce, but research has frequently shown that the group is struggling to hit life's traditional milestones since they're earning less and accumulating more debt.
Well, there's a big part of the problem right there.
Well, it could also be an attitude problem. It could be plenty of things. It could be overindulgent parents. It could be social media addiction. I think there's a never-ending list. There's a never-ending list. A recent study found that people in their 20s today are taking home a salary of the average $45,500, while millennials were earning $51,800 on average at their age when adjusted for inflation. Wages are dropping.
Stagnating or dropping.
Costs are inflating.
Did you see that thing the other day where the guy had like identical grocery bills from like 2 years apart, and it was like $126, and now it's like $400 and some
I think I saw it. It was horrifying. I cannot blame Gen Z for being hesitant about entering the adult world when it is clearly in shambles. But what cannot be excused is completely opting out of contributing value to society, because that's how it's actually going to collapse. Like, that is how we lose the power grid. That is how we lose, anything, any functioning system whatsoever. And, we got to be worried about passing the torch to people who, in significant numbers, are choosing to have zero part in keeping this shit running.
Yeah.
It's scary for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Especially the elderly, who increasingly are going to be under the care of these generations. Yeah. It's scary.
And living longer to experience it to begin with.
Yeah. So thank God for medical miracles. But yeah, that's a shocking stat. It says in Spain alone, over 500,000 of the 15 to 24-year-olds are neither studying nor working.
That was like a pretty, from what I remember, that was like a pretty common thing in certain aspects culturally, and then up to a certain point. What's
common in a country like Spain is to live at home before getting married.
Yeah.
But not to not have a job or not have any education.
Yeah.
Especially at 15?
Yeah.
That's when you're supposed to still be in grade school. Yeah. And they said, meanwhile, in the UK, almost 3 million Gen Zers are now classed as economically inactive, with 384 youngsters joining the workless class since the COVID pandemic. That is a huge factor in it, is that some people just dropped out of college in the middle of COVID, or they lost their jobs in the middle of COVID, and they're probably, living on their parents' dime. Because, their upper middle class parents are being overly indulgent. I saw this take on no one knows what to do about the NEETS. They say there is a trend of, wait, what is this? It was like after the recession, it was increasing after the recession, but then after COVID, that's when it really started a stark rise in this trend.
Maybe it's just like they realized after during COVID they could sit around and do nothing, and then just kept going.
They're affected by a stigma of failure in a capitalist system. A failure to I knew that was going to do a number on you. A failure to recognize and make accommodations for autism spectrum or anxiety disorders. If anything, we are making too many accommodations for disorders like that. And also over-medicating disorders like that. Okay, and then a lack of job opportunities and or social services, combined with the material wealth of middle to upper class families that can support a younger unemployed member indefinitely. That's also a problem.
Can you read the first two again?
Yeah. a these are conditions that seem to give rise to the NEET lifestyle. The stigma of failure in a capitalist system and a failure to recognize and make accommodations for autism, spectrum, or anxiety disorders. Those are the first two.
I think those are kind of linked because being that online and imagining that the reason why we're having a crisis of people not working is somehow tied to that there's that many autistic people. That's insane.
Well, there's definitely some overdiagnosis and self-diagnosis going on there. And if you take NEETS at their word for why they're not doing anything with their lives, you're going to hear much different answers than reality.
Yes.
Because they are quite literally disconnected from the real world.
Fear of failure in a capitalist society means nothing because it's the only society that exists where you can actually have fear of failure, because fear of failure in most other societies just means you die of hunger.
You know, I fear the NEET lifestyle is going to be seen as an act of bravery because it's it's revolutionary because you're opting out of the capitalist rat race. And you're above it all.
You're not, though. You're existing on the backs of your hyper-capitalist parents who can keep you alive.
Well, of course.
So no, you're not. You're just
they don't think
you're just leeching scum like communists.
I mean, I wouldn't say leeching scum.
Leeching scum like communists.
Some of them definitely are leeching scum. Some of them
I'm saying it. Leeching scum.
You know, they're not getting a kick in the pants that they need. Maybe this is why someone like Jordan Peterson became so popular, is because there's just no one willing to speak truth to these people.
There's got to be a middle ground between the idea that we kick them out at 18 and saddle them with debt at college and letting them live at home indefinitely. Absolutely. There has to be a middle ground.
I feel like I was raised with that middle ground, honestly. But, you know, you never know what's going to happen with each individual person. There are ways you can prevent this, though. Don't let your kid essentially be a NEET while they're still a kid. Which what I mean by that is, you know, make them a functioning member of your household. Give them responsibilities that are appropriate for their age.
There's a 20 here from Mountain Goat.
I'm currently NEET, retired from the Navy in 2018? Decided not to work till my son graduates from high school. I figured the military got 20. He can give 6 years of me being at every game at every school function.
Well, if you're so you retired though, right? So you retired with a pension.
Oh, well, that's not.
That's not a NEET. That means that you actually contributed to society for.
I mean, if you want to call yourself a NEET, go ahead.
That's I think you're underselling yourself.
Yeah, being retired, I would not say that's the same thing, because you've worked for what you have. Most of the NEETs we're talking about, I assume what they're doing is mooching off of their parents while they're going through their 20s and 30s, maybe even 40s.
While complaining about the capitalist system.
I don't think most of them are tankies. I think most of them are directionless, confused, and social media and probably porn addicted people. And, you know, it's a symptom of a wider problem of like purposelessness and loneliness that is going to everyone in society, not just NEETs. This is just kind of the extreme example. And what I've noticed is that countries like Japan, South Korea, they seem to be a look into the future for the West, especially, you know, for us in the US. It's a look into the future because their trends with dating, with their economy, with their birth rates are looking into that is literally the crystal ball for what is going to show up in trends in the US. Extremely low birth rates in Korea, for instance. They're at 0.7 per woman. It's a huge decrease every year, and it's a national crisis. Similar in Japan. And we're going to start seeing more and more of that. The social atomization, the hyper consumerism that they have over there. We're already pretty bad in that regard, but it's going to accelerate. And we can look at those countries for a prediction in the future.
Imagine being in like somehow like two worlds colliding where nobody's working and everybody's hyper consumerist.
Right. Like, how the fuck do people do it? I was wondering this during the pandemic. Like, if you are out of work because of COVID and lockdowns. How the fuck are all these people affording 2-day shipping and DoorDash every day? What is going on?
Well, the DoorDash, yeah.
Is it just government money? It must have been those stimmy checks that I didn't get any of.
I ended the poll, ladies and gentlemen. I asked, are you a NEET? 72% of you say no. 27% of you say yes. I would wonder how many of those were like self-imposed NEETs, meaning that you retired from your job and you're just...
Yeah.
Then I don't see that as a NEET. I just don't.
Well, if you are a NEET by choice, truly, then I would like to hear you elaborate on your situation and how you feel about it.
How do you fix this problem?
That is so beyond the scope of what I am capable. But I mean, really, I do see there is a spiritual emptiness. I know I'm saying this as a religious person, so that only the religious people are really going to hear this resonate, but it's true. I mean, you can see better outcomes in more religiously practicing societies and smaller local communities.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about these other subsets that are found in other countries. This reminded me of the hikikomori. They're hikikomori in Japan, and they're known as a group severe social withdrawal, total withdrawal from society, and seeking extreme degrees of social isolation and confinement. Hikikomori refers to the phenomenon in general and the recluses themselves, described as loners or modern-day hermits. The phenomenon is primarily recognized in Japan, although similar concepts exist in other cultures, especially South Korea.
If we see this in the West, I would imagine that a lot of it is attached heavily to prescription or illegal drug use, meaning that you've isolated yourself because all you need is your meds. Right?
Possible. But in Japan, I wouldn't see that happening.
I'm saying in the West here. And yeah, I'm saying in the West here that it would correlate heavily. Because look, there were periods of time where like I'm not an antisocial person, but I'm more on the introverted side. I'd like to, I think, but there were times where I was basically that when I was at the worst ends of my drug use, because all you think about is that. And so many people, live on prescriptions and things like that. And that's obviously not the case for all of them, but I bet it plays a role for some of it here in the West, that it isolates you. Drug use certainly does.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And the stereotypical hikikomori is just living in a pile of empty Mountain Dew cans, probably. They're addicted to video games, addicted to the internet, addicted to porn, extremely agoraphobic, can't leave the house for anything, either get everything delivered or have other people do it for you. And in case you thought of the male archetype in your head, there's also a new definition for the girls who are social recluses, specifically in China. They're referred to as the nowhere girls, or Mei Nu, a neologism coined to describe women who have no money, no job, no education, no prospects, no looks, no friends, and no sophistication. That is a lot.
My favorite is the top comment. Just says, how is it even statistically possible to lack all of those things?
Interestingly, it says the pronunciation in Chinese of nowhere girls will sound the same as beautiful girls.
Yeah.
Weird, right? But it's a pejorative, obviously, as it should be. Because, regardless of your age or the terrible circumstances that we happen to be living in with our economy and our culture, you can't just opt out. Like, you still have a duty not only to yourself, but also to your family and also to your community and also to your country and in a broader sense, the world. Like, this does concern you.
Look, there's a lot of people, I'm sure, in our chat that probably hate the average politician as much as I do. If for no other reason than just to not let them win, don't opt out. Because they hate you.
You know what? Yeah, if the last thing you have to motivate yourself is spite, use it.
I don't know if that's it's not the greatest motivator, but perhaps you start with spite and you move on to more oh wait, here I'll use the word more nourishing means of social motivation, but certainly don't let them win.
Also, in my research for this, I found the subreddit for NEETS, r/NEET, currently has 42,000 members. And I found a poll that one of the users put up on r/NEET asking people, how often do you have a satisfying social interaction? And I saw the result was 55% voted they only have a satisfying social interaction once a year or less.
That's insane.
Like, that is a mental illness, right? You're at a level of dysfunction that really, it must be related to some kind of strange, like agoraphobia or
do you have,
something.
Do you consider most of your social interactions outside of work to be like pleasant ones or ones that go off without a hitch?
Well, sure. I mean, I don't think I have that many.
Okay, so I'll
unpleasant.
I literally last night I was at I went to get more cough drops from the Dollar General, and I
should give you mine.
And I had a conversation with just the most upbeat, positive worker that I've ever met, and it was a joy to have a discussion with this guy.
I don't know why I was picturing an older woman.
No, it was a middle-aged guy, and he was
Nice.
he was talking. He's like, look, he's like, asked how you do. It's the typical conversation. Like, oh, how you doing? Can't complain. He goes, you know what? Especially when you realize that there's other people in the world that do have things that are going on to complain about, it puts things into perspective. And just hearing that from someone gives me a reason to be happy and to see that not everyone looks at the world through the same negative lens. And I was like, if his manager was around, I'd tell him to give that dude a raise because the world needs more of that, do they not?
Yeah, well, I mean, we do focus on the negative on this show quite often, but that's the name of the game, and we don't mean it to drag anybody viewing down. It's more so that, we want to come up with our own interpretations of it all.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.